Hey there, Smoke Master D coming at you with another video. Today we're going to be looking again at the Texas Smoke King. I looked at it in one video previous, but we have new evidence from a YouTuber named, his channel is BentonQuest Bull BBQ. It appears that his channel has veered more towards barbecue just recently. He did one cook previously that was on an offset smoker that was on a trailer. And now he has the first production model of the Texas Smoke King from M&M BBQ. He's made 3 videos as present in the taping of this. The first one is a walkthrough and biscuit test. The second one is chicken wings. And the third one is a full cook with several different meats, including brisket. Now, at the offset of this video, I want to say that this isn't a whole lot of evidence, right, for the Texas Smoke King. There was one sort of poor biscuit test on the Workhorse Pits 1975 that it did a video on from another YouTuber, and one, we know that the Workhorse Pits 1975 is a very good offset smoker, and two, I think hopefully we've learned not to blow these results out of proportion of what they actually are. But one thing that we have learned, I think, about this Texas Smoke King is that the heat distribution isn't quite as even as maybe we'd hoped, But the one thing that we've really learned is we have an actual full view of what the baffling looks like. And we see that in BentonQuest's first video. As I had thought, there is that downward baffle. We get to see it now. It looks bigger than maybe I had originally thought. We get to see more of the upper baffling too. And interesting enough, there's a flap that has a little hook that you can use to block that heat right next to where it's exiting out. So if you have something taller, you can get that heat to come up and over it. So cool, that's a cool sort of thing, and makes that part of it, I believe, work better. Now, the one thing about that lower baffle is that heat's coming up and creating what they call a warm spot. Is it actually a hot spot? I don't know, the splitting hairs between the differences there. What we can tell is that it did affect BentonQuest's cook, and it affected the biscuit test too. So when we take a look at the biscuit test, one thing that he does that I've never seen before is he actually uses his thermopen on the biscuits, which, maybe I should have done as well. That was actually kind of a stroke of genius there. But he notices that the temperatures of these biscuits are about 20 degrees from one side of the pit to the other. So the biscuits were temping around 180 on the far side, and they were temping around 200 right on the side nearest the firebox. So there is that part of it, and the undersides were a little bit more cooked towards the firebox. So you have that. Then, his chicken wings cooked a bit. I watched that video. I didn't analyze it quite as deeply as the last video that I'm going to talk about. So there's a few things that went not as ideally on his last cook, the big cook. And really, when we're taking a look at this, we're asking ourselves, is this user error or is this the pit, right? And it's really kind of hard to tell. The first thing that it appears to have gone wrong is a couple of tri-tips, right? So we wanted those tri-tips to probably temp out, at probably medium rare, but he overshot that. And I think that part of the problem was, as he said, he was using sort of his timing for when he used to cook 225 to 250 for now when he's cooking 250 to 275. So my immediate assumption when I saw that part first seeing this video was it was the cooker that overcooked these and it was its fault. But when I looked back at it and really listened to what he was saying, it seems more like it was on BentonQuest and his fault that he overcooked the tri-tips using the wrong timing for the temperatures, right? So that being said, the baby back ribs he overcooked and sort of scorched the bottoms of them. And you can actually see in the picture that he's placing them right in what they call the warm or hot spot. He says that he cooks them for 4.5 hours at 250 to 275, which he was doing for his brisket. Now, the fact that they're scorched on the bottom isn't super great. One thing, though, to consider is why he put them on the warm spot to begin with, you know. But really, we're looking at this idea, this conception of what we wanted from the pit, you know, it was that it should cook evenly throughout. The idea that putting them on the warm spot shouldn't have made too big of a difference. Now, one other factor is he didn't wrap them. So these were no wrap ribs that went 4.5 hours from 250 to 275 and looked fairly scorched on the bottom. He says that, you know, there's still good eating, there's still a lot of good food there, and, you know, I've had that situation before. You saw the beef ribs that I made previously, and, you know, even though I oversalted them, and just if you have seen that, the oversalting came from the bouillon that I did that was supposed to be no sodium, and it was no sodium, but it used another salt, potassium chloride, as a salt substitute, which is actually just another salt. And I still enjoyed that food, but the bark did taste too salty in some places. So you can have a less than ideal cook and still eat really well. And I think that is what happened with these baby back ribs that he put on there. So how do you you know, think about this as evidence, right? How much was the smoker? How much was the user? Really, what I think we see here is that this warm spot is kind of more of a hot spot. The real question is, you know, you have a similar sort of warm spot coming up in the Workhorse Pits 1975 that doesn't have the open top baffle, right? So it just has that one plate that they've put there by doing computer testing to see what the best flow is in a smoker. And you can move that hot spot around by changing the dampers. One thing that we don't know about this BentonQuest cook is what he did set the dampers to. And the question becomes, well, how important would that have been to the cook? If he had, usually, you know, if he closed the damper down a bit more, would that have changed the outcome on his ribs, right? How would that have changed the cook? Now, what BentonQuest tells us is that he's focusing primarily on his brisket, which apparently turned out fantastically, right? So you have this data wherein the main thing turned out really well, but these side things maybe didn't turn out quite as well, right? So, you know, how much should we take into account that, right? So you want your pit to cook everything well, not just the brisket. You want it to do everything well. So I see this potential sort of hot spot in the middle of the smoker, and it really seems like that isn't too different from the Workhorse Pits 1975 that's about $1,000 cheaper. That's the main problem I'm seeing with this Texas Smoke King, is that it is not obviously $1,000 better than the Workhorse Pits 1975, right? Could it technically be better? You know, it would take testing between the two of them, having them right there on hand to figure out. But it is not obviously $1,000 better. And the other problem is that it doesn't appear to be better than the Goldie's Pit, which seems to have much simpler hot spots, you know, right in front of where it enters in that tube, and, you know, just a little bit on the back end where it's coming around to the exhaust, right? So when you're thinking about buying this Texas Smoke King and it's $250 cheaper than the Goldies, you know, I don't see yet the advantage of taking that $250 cheaper rather than ponying up that money and getting the Goldie's Pit. So that is the main problem with the results so far, is that even if this thing can be used better by using the dampers better, right, it's not yet obviously better than its competition. Okay, so we will have to look at more evidence further on. I'm sure BentonQuest will put out more evidence as he goes. I'm sure more people will get the Texas Smoke King and will see more from it. But right now, the evidence doesn't say, hey, this is what we had hoped for the even heat distribution. Okay? But I don't want to put too much into what we've seen so far. I don't want to say, no, don't get this smoker. But I do want to say that it hasn't quite lived up to the expectations we had hoped for, or I had hoped for. Yeah, that is my interpretation of these videos from BentonQuest. Hopefully that was useful to you. Please do like this video and subscribe to the channel. And, you know, I'll probably be back talking about more smokers at some point in the future. Until then, you know, go get your smoke on, y'all.